What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. We are finally back in the shop working on the Transator today. It's been a long-awaited video. I've said in a couple past videos we were waiting on some parts, and most of them finally showed up. Now, some of you might recognize the label on these boxes. I don't know if you can read them this far away, but that says Vintage Air. About 2.5 months ago, finally ordered a kit to retrofit all the AC on this car. Now, when I built this car for originally, I redid the entire AC system factory. Everything is brand new on this AC system except for the condenser and the wiring harness. I've replaced everything brand new, all 134A, Freon, all that stuff. And the AC in this car is awful. It barely blows out. It's cold, but it barely blows out. It wasn't meant to blow the way a new car does. So that's what this kit does right here. It retrofits everything to modern stuff, brand new stuff, new wiring, new controls, all in one fan unit, all in one good stuff. We're gonna get into the box in just a minute. I'll give you a little backstory on why I ordered this kit. One, like I said, the AC sucked. It wasn't very good. It didn't cool very well. This car is mostly glass in the cabin, so the sun overpowered the AC system. But about 5 months ago, probably June, I think it was, I was driving down the interstate, you know, AC on, trying its best. And all of a sudden, some smoke started coming out the dash. A little burned wire smoke going on there. Shut the AC system off and it stopped doing that. So the original wiring in this car is no longer happy for the AC system. Everything else still works fine, except for it kills the battery overnight. So I have to unhook the battery every time I drive the car. But so we are going to finally fix that problem, fix all the issues I have with the AC system. And this thing should keep me cool in the summertime. So. And it's also the heater, so it'll help me right now because it's cold. So we're gonna start diving into these boxes, pull everything out, give you guys an overview of what's in the kit. And we will get to it because I'm excited about this, and I don't get to drive the car very much because it's a pain in the butt. I have to take the battery disconnected every time I get to work or get to where I'm going. So let's get this thing fixed so we can get this thing back on the road. Alright, so let's dive into some of these boxes, see what all this kit comes with. Now, for those of you who don't know Vintage Air very well, they do a lot of older cars. They have universal kits, I believe. You can get just pieces, you can upgrade just compressor, upgrade whatever you want to. This unit is your complete kit for this car. It's supposed to have everything. It completely replaces everything. Condenser, comes with compressor, comes with new lines, dryers. It removes that whole dog box under the hood and all the stuff under the dash, and it replaces the entire thing as one unit underneath the dash with an upgrade blower that actually puts out, with new ductwork, everything. This kit should be every single thing you need to convert this crappy AC system into the good stuff. So, over there. This appears to be the inside kit. This right here, this right here is the unit I was just talking about under the dash. This is everything in one sealed unit. The blower's right here. You got your evaporator here, all your lines and everything. Everything is in this one box, heater core, everything. And this goes up on the dash and replaces all that crap up under there into one small convenient package. Oh, they've got all the adapters, they've got, that's a glove box. They got all parts and pieces, all this. Comes with brand new ductwork, run everything. Comes with everything you should need. Instructions. Even comes with brand new control panels and everything. Behind door number 2. We have an upgrade compressor, smaller. Here we go. Here's the big boy over top. Condenser brackets for the condenser. It's like the dryer bracket. We got some wiring, some more brackets. These should be the compressor brackets. So basically, as long as you get the full kit, should cover everything you need to get this car fully cool and hot. Heater cores in there too. So excited about this. We're diving into this thing. We do gotta rip some stuff apart. This car is complete, so gotta do some stuff. It says you can get away with just pulling the inner fender on this wheel well. If you know anything about these Pontiacs, where the blower motor is, it's hard to get to. So we're gonna pull the inner fender out. I don't believe you have to pull the whole dash out, but I'm probably gonna end up doing it just because you gotta get the wiring out, all the gauges, or all the controls and everything else out. So we'll see. So I'm gonna do something I don't normally do. I'm gonna read the instructions, and then we're gonna dive into this thing because I'm excited. I want to get this thing in here. It's gonna make the car much more comfortable to use, and it's gonna get the car back on the road. Like I said, this thing kills the battery in about 3 hours because something under the dash is melted, and it's frustrating the poo out of me. So we're gonna dive into this thing right now. So let's go. All right, the first thing that we're gonna do is start disassembling everything. Everything's gotta come out. The compressor, all the brackets with it, the dryer, this whole evaporator housing, all the wiring to it, the lines, the condenser, all that good stuff. So we're gonna start out here, and then I'll move into the interior once all this is done. So basically, step 1 is just remove everything. I drove this to work the other day, and while I was there, I went ahead and drained all the Freon out of it. So that's good to go because, you know, EPA doesn't like that if you just let it out in the air. So that's all taken care of. So we can go ahead and just start taking everything apart. Well, compressor's out. Gotta take the rest of this crap out. Got another metal line here. Which, by the way, if anyone's building Trans Am and they want original AC parts, give me a call. I'm not throwing this stuff out. I'm gonna keep it unless somebody wants it. Gladly sell it to you for a really cheap deal. Half of this crap, this line right here, they don't remake, or at least I haven't been able to find it. So, you know, there's a good dog box on it. Anyhow. Let me know. Hit me up on Instagram, Facebook. Shoot, message me in the comments. I don't care. If you're interested in, let me know. Anyhow, back to disassembly. So, we're gonna get the condenser out. I've got a good view of it. Anyway, that thing back there. So in order to get this thing out, as you can see, this little brace right here is gonna be in the way because it's gonna come out and then come down. you can't do because that brace goes all the way down underneath the bottom. So two top bolts here, 2 bolts to hold this nose on. The horns are attached to it, which I'm just all unplugging and leaving right there. And there's some bolts on the bottom. Should be good to go. All right, once that's out of the way, this is ready to come out. I have a fan hooked into it, but that's just hooked in just as this, so it should come out with it, no problem. Unplugged it already up there. It's got a bolt down here, one on the other side. And then, I don't know if you can see, up top. Man, where are these bolts at? Right there. There's one on the other side. And that's all there is that holds it into the radiator. So I'm gonna take those 4 bolts out. Should be able to drop this thing out the bottom. What's up, everybody? Welcome back, I guess, to the same video. It's all gonna be one big video, but it's been like a month since I've worked on this thing because the brand new truck decided it needed to go back to the dealer. And I had to hobble this thing back together to daily drive for 2 weeks. But we're back, she's back from the dealer, and we're back on the Trans Am. So let's jump back into where we left off here. All right, when we left off, I was working on getting the inner fender well out. Clearly, I have gotten that out. You know, I had to zip tie that back in, all the wires and everything back up to run this thing. But we're gonna be working on this. Oh, that's bad glare. All right, so we're gonna be working on getting the evaporator housing out, the blower motor, all the wiring, all that good stuff out. First thing we gotta do is drain the coolant because we gotta take these heater hoses off. And then once we get that, it's just gonna start unbolting. So we're gonna go ahead, drain the coolant, and we'll move from there. All right, so we got the coolant drained. Next thing we do is start unwiring stuff. We got your power, which is a spade terminal, ground right here on the blower motor. You got your relay. I can get in here to see it up top here. We got your resistor, and then you got your low pressure switch. Basically, all this stuff just unplugs pretty much. Take all this stuff off, fold the wiring out of the way. Eventually, we're gonna pull all the wiring out. I believe comes with new wiring, I think, but and then it's just a bunch of bolts all the way around everything. Whole system comes out. So let's jump into it. All right, so I got all the bolts out. There are 3 more. There's this one here. There's 1 down below it and 2 on the bottom of this side of the case. Couldn't really get in there to show you a video of it. So now it's loose. Everything is loose now. Don't ask me why. There's this little ear that sticks off here. It's kind of in the way. We're gonna see if we can get around it. If not, worst case scenario, we'll have to split the case. There's 2 here. 2 on the bottom and 2 on the side right here that hold this half and this half together. And we can pull this out and then slide this over enough to get it out. We're gonna try to get it all out in one piece. Don't know if it's gonna cooperate. Yeah, looks like we gotta split the case. What's happening is actually I'm hitting the hood hinge, actually, and because of the heater inlet right here, I can't really get a whole bunch of movement. I'm gonna take these screws out and we will pop this thing in half. One half. Oh, that stuff's good. That glue. like that, evaporator housing is out. I will tell you this right now. Even if you're switching to vintage air, don't destroy this box. I've watched a couple videos that I could find on these type of cars, these are the Camaros. Don't destroy this box. People cut it just to get it out of there. These boxes are so freaking expensive. As far as I know, no one remakes them. People want $200-300 for these stupid boxes. So do yourself a favor, take 10 extra minutes, take it out without crushing it. Sell it if nothing else. But anyhow, so as you can see, we have a big old hole in the firewall. And the next part is the fun part. Gotta pull the dash out. Gonna pull the dash out. I believe it says you can do it without pulling the dash out. Not 100% sure. I'm gonna try not to because it's a pain in the butt. I had this dash out when I built this car because I redid the wiring harness and all that stuff. It's not super pain in the butt, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. So we're gonna dive onto the inside, start taking everything out because this whole heater box and everything in here is gonna come out. We got all sorts of new goodies coming in. So let's jump on the inside and we'll start that project. All right, so onto the interior. Basically everything's gotta come out. We gotta pull the glove box out, the dash out, the heater box up under there, all the duct working, all the duct work to the vents there, and there. The control panel's gotta come out. Everything's gotta come out, which is kind of annoying. But I guess 2 birds, 1 stone. One of my dash light bulbs is out, so you know, we'll just make the best of it. So we're gonna start over here. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the glove box out, and I can undo some wiring connections over here, and then we'll move over, pull the gauge bezel and the gauges out, and all that fun stuff. Glove box is pretty simple. There's 2 screws that hold this little keeper arm in, 4 screws along the bottom. I have wired in a trunk release, sold out of one of the parts cars I used in here. It's fancy. So if you do have one stock, it's the same place. This is a stock location. Well, that comes right out. And same thing, the glove box, it actually has a couple screws all the way around it. You got to take this glove box out because there are screws up here that hold this to the metal cowling up here. So regardless, you got to take this out. I don't think you necessarily have to take the glove box door off, but the hinge is literally just plastic, so you'll break it if you're not careful. This should just slide right out. All right, so there's a lot going on in here. This is the actual heater box itself back here. This. Underneath here, this is all ductwork. You can get most of this ductwork out right now with the dash and everything in. It's, you know, it's all just kind of screws here, there's some down here, and some right here, and here. Well, there should be one right here, but this box is broken. So it all just fairly simply comes apart. If you look, I don't know if you can see, right there, I think there's another one there, are the actual screws that hold the dash to this upper cowling down here. So those are gonna have to come out a little bit. But right now what we're gonna do is go ahead and I'm gonna pull all the ductwork that I can off, and then disconnect the back here. You see back there in the back. I don't know if you can see too well. That white thing with the wire coming out of it is the actual heater, the blend door control. It's mechanically pulled from the switch up here, right there. That's what opens and closes. So I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect that because that comes out with the gauge controls. So go ahead and pull that off, and then we'll move over to the dash. So we're gonna start pulling these junky, broken, glued back together ductwork out because they want $100 and something just for this one piece right here. And I'm not about that life. So let's work this out. Alright, so we're moving into the driver's side over here. Gotta get the bezel out, all the gauges, the controls, and everything. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the steering wheel off this One button just pops out. It's got 3 little tabs that hold it in. And it's just these little 6 Allen head screws that come out. The steering wheel's off. One, it just makes out of the way, and 2, this is a gold steering wheel and it was very expensive, so I want to pull these out of the way. Okay, so the dash bezel, it's just got 3 screws up top here, and this panel down here is going to come off, and there's actually 2 that screw in from the bottom and hold it together. So we're going to go ahead and pop this off real quick. I go also the cigarette lighter, this ring right here for it is also screwed in holding it down. So that comes off as well. All right, once you get all those screws out, very delicately, oh, what that noise. All right, put that in a very safe location. Ta-da. All right, so now this control's got to come out. It's got 3 screws that hold it in. These vents come out. This vent's got to come out. All the associated ductwork. You know the drill. Let's go ahead and rip this stuff out. Alright, so got the dash out, sitting over there. Gotta pull the heater box out next. And then this kick panel's gonna come out because we gotta get to the access to the fresh air vent over there. And then we gotta start on wiring all the AC wiring. But we're gonna get this heater box out first. I already took all the screws out, so it should fairly easily come out. Okay, I retract my statement. I gotta take the defrost vents out first because they're attached to the heater box. And then we'll pull the heater box out.
Need to hand me something? Don't get mad. Don't Jay Cumbie on me.
Gently remove. Correct. Alright.
Did you need that?
I don't need that now.
Okay.
There's a replacement heater vent. All the vents are getting replaced. You do have to reuse the vent grills that are in the dash. So make sure not to break those. So now I'm gonna pull the heater box out. More wheel this time just comes out. You also have to deal with all the vacuum lines and crap, but the good news is you don't have to reuse any of it, so you can break it. Don't take my advice. leaking.
Not on the carpet.
I know, my new carpet.
Well, it's like big.
Alright. Say that. Alright, heater box is out. Heater box is out. Most people would remove the center console, that would make it a lot easier, but we got this out. A little bit cool, spill, no big deal. Alright, now I'm gonna go through and trim out all the wiring and the the vacuum tubes that actuate all these doors and stuff, because everything is electronic in the new one. So we're gonna go through and weed out the wiring. Let's do that. Alright, so now we got the heater box and the dash out of here. We can kind of start moving forward to install the new stuff. And the first thing we're gonna do is the wiring harness. This is the old heater controls. There's a plug here for the selector and a plug here for the fan switch, and then this was the vacuum for all the blend doors. So I just went ahead and removed all the vacuums. The only vacuum line we're gonna keep is the one for the fresh air duct, and that's gonna have a constant vacuum from the intake to keep it closed, because we're losing our vent anyway for the new AC lines. And now the new AC system comes with a wiring harness. It's gonna replace pretty much these controls down here. So these are the controls that were in the back of the old controls. This is fan speed, this is the position, and this is your lights. So basically all this is gonna come out. The only thing you need for the new system is you need a ignition power and you need a light power for your backlights. So with all this kind of unplugs right here, I'm pretty sure, I gotta double check. I'm pretty sure this is gonna be my ignition power. I'll have to double check that. And then if I can get this unplugged. Without stabbing my hand with a screwdriver. Okay. So this wiring harness, with all your AC stuff, it goes to the firewall. All this can go away. All this is junk now. That's trash. And then all I got to do is I need the power for this light, which was the light for the AC controls, to wire into the new one. So I'm gonna go ahead and rip all this out, and then we will start laying out the new wiring harness. And then we're gonna start putting the new AC system. Cut. All right, so now that we're officially done with this assembly, we can start going ahead and assemble the new stuff. I'm gonna hold off on wiring. I said I was gonna do that next. I'm gonna hold off on wiring a little bit until I get some other things run first, because that's kind of down towards the end of the line. Anyway, next thing we gotta do is, obviously, there's a gaping hole in our firewall. So the kit comes with this plate, which covers that up. First thing we gotta do is enlarge this hole and this hole to accept a 1/4 inch bolt. And this plate is threaded. I don't know if you can see. So all you do is drill these holes out a little bit bigger, and then throw some RTV on that and install it. Alright, so couldn't follow it all a little bit. The instructions do say run a bead of RTV around the outside edge, just keep watering stuff out. And this installs from the inside, so the bolts come from the outside in. So we'll go ahead and throw this in real quick. All right, so another plate we have to install is this. It goes over this hole right here, and this is where your wiring harness is gonna run through. It comes with the grommet, and they want you to run all the wires through here. So what we do is hold it up there, mark the 2 mounting holes, and drill them out to 5/16 as well. So we're gonna move on and start on the condenser and work our way back to the cab. So, open up the box for the condenser. Here's what they got. We got the condenser here, this bracket, and this just adorable little receiver dryer. So, make sure there's an inlet and outlet, so make sure this is facing the right way. Pop this in the thing. Tighten everything down with the washer that they give you. Alrighty, this bracket's got 2 little screws made into it, so that bolts in right. Here are these 2 little brackets. Just kind of rinse and repeat on the other side. You get your bracket with the 2 little studs. It goes in. Now, I guess it's a disclaimer, and I guess we're going to find out too at the same time. The instructions say, to pull the radiator out of the car. At least this is what the photos and the instructions say. Pull the radiator out, mount this bracket to the core support, that bracket to the condenser, and for some weird reason, they want you to caddy corner it in through the hole where the radiator goes. Let me show you. This is what they want you to do. Mount that bracket I just put onto the core support, and then come in through the engine bay side, caddy cornered, and then meet it out, and then put those 2 bolts in. I feel like that's gonna make it 100 times harder. And I've already taken the bracket out the front where you got plenty of access to get to this. So I'm gonna try it this way because I don't want to pull the radiator. Drained, but I still do all that jazz. So we're gonna go ahead and slip this back in. It does say attached to hard metal line, but I don't want to open the dryer yet because it seals, and as soon as you do, moisture gets in there, and it's gonna be probably a few more days before I get this thing vacuumed and ready to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave that on. There's plenty of room underneath this car to get to it. The only reason I can think they say this, would say this, I'm gonna go ahead and put the line on everything, is the Trans Ams that have the fender skirting. They got the little flares, and they actually have a skirt that goes underneath the car. I deleted them on mine. I actually welded up the holes in the fender. I like the fender line better without them. So maybe that's why they say it, because you'd have to drop that to get to it. I don't know. Still seems like less work than pulling the radiator, but regardless. We're gonna go ahead and try to stick this thing back in, and we'll move on from there. All right, so we've got the condenser back in. I'm gonna move on to the compressor next, but I pulled the brackets out of the box and they're raw steel, so hit a coat of paint on them real quick, and they are drying right now. So we're gonna move back to plumbing the lines here. These are heater hoses and the 2 high and low side AC lines. Like I said earlier, they're gonna go through where the blower motor used to be. So what we're gonna do is route them in, tuck them in through here, and then we're gonna go back on the inside and pull them out through where the fresh air vent was on the kick panel. And then we gotta trim up the kick panel to accept the new ones. They come with the new, sort of like this. It's got the 4 holes in it for the lines to come through. And then we can actually get to installing the actual evaporator, heater core, all that jazz housing. So let's run these things in here real quick and get them in through the inside. So this is the original kick panel. It's got the vent for fresh air. What they want us to do is basically cut this whole thing off. We actually have to cut it, says I believe 3/4 of an inch around here. Because this is the new plate, it's gonna sit in here where the 4 lines come out of. Now this is the cover. It sat right here. It hid the little vacuum actuator for the blend door. They want you to trim straight up here on this piece to cut this corner out to give room for it. So we're gonna go ahead and mark this out and cut it out real quick. Alrighty, just like that, we're good to go. Even the holes line up. So what we gotta do now is install the kick panel first, and then put this bad boy in. And then I still gotta trim this. I'm gonna hold it up because the instructions just say to cut this tab, this lip off right here. So I'm gonna hold it up there and see how much I need to cut. This will help hide some of the lines and everything. So let's jump back on the inside and get this put back in. All right, so the kick panel mostly just slides in. Get it through these wires, or through these hoses. And then the seal plate actually holds it down, so you gotta pull some screws out of that thing. All right. Now we gotta feed the lines through here, and there is a certain way they go. It wants the low side line, high side line, and the 2 heater hoses. So we gotta make sure we send those through the right places. Dang, that's a big thing. This fitting on this thing is huge, and these grommets have a small hole. So on the other one, I had to actually take the grommet off too and force it through there. So you might have to do that. All right, so we got the kick panel in. That was a pain. That was probably the hardest thing I've done, is trying to get this line through that grommet. But if you can see down there, got them all in, got the panel held in with these bolts. This bottom bolt, this, and these 2 are what actually hold this on, which is what we'll do once the evaporator box is bolted in, so I know the lines are what they need to be so that I can trim that thing. Went ahead and put that in and tighten that bolt down, so that's just tighten in there. I got lines just ran out the hood for right now. This is the evaporator housing. And heater core and all that good jazz. So our next step is to put these on. These are the adapters for, if you can see right here, these are the heater core outlets. So I gotta screw these 2 on to put the hoses on. And then we're gonna put these brackets, this bracket right here, it's gonna bolt right here. These top 2 screws drill into the dash support to hold it up, and then there's this bracket which attaches back here, which a bolt comes through the firewall. Oops, upside down. Which a bolt comes through the firewall and holds here. So we'll go ahead and throw this together, and then we can get this in the car on the floorboard and hook up all the lines. And then once the lines are hooked up, we'll bolt them in. Obviously, you got your 2 AC lines right there and there. Yada 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 yada. So let's get these on and get this in the car. All right, now the brackets are on. We're gonna throw it in the car and start hooking up the lines. And then we can start hooking up the ductwork and run the wiring. So let's jump back in here. All right, so there's one more step we gotta do before we can mount our lines in our evaporator case. So this case obviously has to have a drain on the bottom. So they want you to drill a hole 1 inch below. They want you to drill a hole 1 inch below where the drain comes out of the case, which I've already gone and measured based off the mounting bracket. So we're gonna go ahead and drill us a hole real quick so that we can install the case. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start connecting these hoses. We get 2 heater cores in the back, your high side line is here at the bottom of this, low side right there. Go ahead and start the heater hoses. All right, so got the lines hooked up. Somewhat of a pain, but it is what it is. Not a big fan of this line. They want you to 90 it like this. Don't know why. Anywho, the kit comes with this, I don't know what you call this stuff. It's that AC sealant goop like this stuff right here. They want you to wrap this line so just for condensation purposes. So, I'm gonna throw some. All right, so now it's time to mount it. I don't know if you can see this hole right here. Oh, that's not a focus. This hole right here, the top hole in this plate we put in, it's left open. That's the hole the screw is gonna come in and thread into here. And then, like I said, these two are supposed to thread into the upper part of the dash. And it came with 2 big sheet metal screws for this, and then obviously a threaded screw for that. So let's grab those and get to it. All right, so now look at the lines, everything run. We're gonna move on to the compressor brackets. Right here, this is the one that bolts to the block. Fairly simple. 4 bolts and spacers. This bolts to the outside of here, which is where your adjustment is on the compressor. So let's go ahead and throw this thing in and get the compressor hung. And then we're almost there. All we only got is dash and wiring. So let's throw this in the car and get going. All right, so go ahead and install the bracket. Usually this is a threaded hole here. There's these 2 here, and this one down here is what holds the main bracket to the body, or to the engine, I mean. All right, go ahead and cinch these down. All right, so now we got the bracket of the car. We're gonna mount the second bracket to the compressor, and then we're gonna mount the compressor in the actual car. Simple enough, this bracket here, 1, 2, 3 bolts here. There's a pinch bolt that locks this to the other bracket, and then this one is utilized on the other bracket as well, which is your pivot. So we're gonna run these bolts in, throw this sucker in the car. Alright, so next thing we're gonna do is go ahead and finish up out here. Gonna hook the lines from here to the condenser, and then other than wiring, everything will be done out here. I hooked up the heater hose to the pump, but of course, I don't know if I can get you guys in there to see, the fitting for the rear heater hose is completely rusted out, so I'm sure that's gonna crumble when I try to take it out. So that's fun, but we'll deal with that at the end of things. So we're gonna go ahead and hook up the AC lines and everything out here, and then all the lines will be connected, and then we can go ahead and run the wiring. And then once we're done with the wiring, the only thing we got left to do is the ductwork and put the dash back in. So let's go ahead and get the lines out, the rest of the couple of hard lines to run, and we will finish this system. All right, so I don't know if you can see all the way down here. This is going to be the high side line from the condenser to the dryer and everything. This line connects directly to the dryer and then to the condenser, and this is going to be connected straight to our high side line coming from the box. Okay, that was snug down. We got our low side line, which is going to come. Oh, if I can get this off. Cotton picking. All right. All right, this line here is gonna actually come in, connect right here, our compressor. Take this off. Well, have the compressor sideways. I'm off a tooth, or I guess a hole, so I'm gonna fix that real quick. All right, and we're back. I got the compressor set up correctly this time. So we're gonna go this little intermediate line is gonna go from the compressor to the hard line of the condenser. So I'm gonna add this to the actual condenser. But we'll go ahead and thread this one in. All right, so that just leaves this little intermediate line to the condenser. I don't know if y'all can see where I'm aiming at, right down here. There's a little cap right down there I gotta get to. I tell you what, those Venezuela people, they're all right. They thought of everything, man. They even gave us a little bracket that bolts to the head to relocate the dipstick. It used to attach here to the old compressor bracket. I just snip that off and they add a little bracket. Ain't that something nice? Anywho, all right, we are moving on to bigger and better things, such as the heater valve. So, this is the heater valve. It's very, you can't see, it's a little dark, but it's marked one way. They want you to put on the inlet hose, which is this one. Comes from the water pump to the heater core. So we're gonna go ahead and splice this in. Now they want the directions to tuck it up here behind the fender. The inner fender is gonna come back, so you gotta keep in mind where you're gonna put this thing. But another big problem is you have the vent on the Trans Am. So clearly don't want to put it back here because then you'll see it like that. So I'm gonna put it somewhere around here where it's up above where the fender well would be, but in front of the vent. We'll go ahead, all I gotta do is just cut this line and splice it in. It comes with hose clamps and everything. So let's get to that real quick. All right, so that's the heater valve. I'm gonna leave that dangling for now. We're gonna do the wiring, and then we can put the inner fender back in and button all this stuff. They give you zip ties to tell you to zip tie all these and tuck them up above the fender, holds it into place. So let's go ahead now and break out the wiring harness, and we will run it. It's actually a very simple harness, and we will run it out here, and then we can button up the fender well, and the only thing left to do after that is the ductwork and the dash, and we'll be done. So let's go ahead and throw this harness in. All right, now this is the supplied wiring harness that they give you with the system. It's a pretty simple harness. It replaces every bit of wiring of the old AC system except for the lighting and the ignition power. It's pretty simple. This plugs into the evaporator computer, it's mounted on top of that. You got this, which also plugs into the top of the evaporator box. This runs out the firewall through the grommet they supplied, and this is your heater core, or your heater valve, I mean, on and off. This is just, they want you to ground that to the chassis somewhere. You got this tan wire, which is your lighting, your backlights for the control switches. You tie that into the lights in the old one. This purple wire here is your ignition power. You tie that into just to keep power. And then everything else runs through the firewall and outside. And you got your blue wire here, goes to your binary switch on mounted to your condenser. Red goes to power. Both of these whites go to ground. And then you've also got this, which is our control panel. This has a plug in it, which also goes to the computer on top of the evaporator case. And it also, with the compressor, came, you know, a 3-foot section of cord to go from the compressor to the other end of the binary switch where this goes. So it's pretty simple, it's fairly straightforward. The only thing you gotta do is disconnect this little breaker, mounts under the hood, and obviously this isn't gonna go through the firewall grommet. So I'm gonna take this off, we'll run these few wires through the grommet and connect everything in a matter of a few minutes. So let's jump in the car and get to it. All right, so I got those wires ran through the dash, or through the grommet right there. I'm trying real hard to get you guys videos of everything, but I'm out here by myself and there's no way to squeeze me and a camera in this corner, but I'm sure y'all can picture pushing wires through a grommet. Anyhow, so now all that we're left in here are these two plugs and then these two wires. All right, this big plug just plugs in right here. Simple and easy. Friggin' line it up right. And then you got this plug, which goes right over to here. And ta-da. Now the only thing left to do is, like I said, is these two wires, which this goes to the light that was in the back of the AC switches, and this goes to the ignition power that went to the switches. So let's hop over to the driver's side and wire these two in real quick. All right, like we said earlier in the video, we took the dash apart. I got 2 wires right here. This is my light that came for the AC controls, and this is my battery, my ignition power. So we're gonna tap into these two. All I need is the power from the light. And obviously tap into this. I'm gonna pull the connector off the other side of the harness for this one. That way I can unplug it if need be. And this one I'll just snip it and splice it in. So let's see about that. All right, and then, like I said, I'm gonna grab this connector real quick. We can splice that in. Look good. What are you doing? What? Come on. There you are. Oh, that's helpful. You're being super helpful, Daisy. I appreciate it. Hello. All right, so I got a little visit from my helper, my canine helper, and we are pretty much done with that. I'm gonna heat shrink this connector with, you know, of course, the proper heat gun. All right, that little plug back in, and that is it's all the wiring on the inside. Get this light out so I don't think it goes somewhere. Yep. Now, we're gonna jump to the outside, hooked a few things up out there, which is actually pretty quick and easy. And then we'll be done on the outside except for the heater connector. I showed y'all a few minutes ago, a day ago for me, a few minutes ago for y'all. Hello. The heater connector that goes in the back of the head on these vehicles, on these engines, let me put it that way, is not threaded in like most would be. This is actually a press in. It's kind of like a freeze plug, I guess you could say. It's like a tight tolerance in it. And of course, no one has those. I got to order it, so it'll be here. Who knows when? Next week, a week after that, probably, because Christmas is at the end of this week. So we'll have the car pretty much done, minus, you know, filling it with coolant and being able to drive it. But anyway, let's go outside, finish all the wiring, and then we'll come and do the ductwork and put the dash back in, and she'll be done. Let's go. All right, so under the hood, moving on the wire. Like I said earlier, this wire came with the compressor. Hooks here, you're supposed to run it. Runs to the front to the binary switch, and plugs into that, and then that's where our blue wire right here comes in, where I run this above the fender well into the front as well. Now, I've got the heater core plugged in, or the heater valve plugged in, a little quick connect plug. And then like off the heater valve wire is a ground that once you run a ground. What I'm gonna do is pull this bolt back out from this little bracket where the grommet runs through, and we'll clean off the paint and make sure this gets a good ground through there. And then I've already hooked the breaker back up. I'm gonna use this bolt down here, the block off plate we put on to hold that in. And then all we're gonna do is run this power wire around and over to the battery. And along with both of these ground wires. So we're gonna go ahead and run those And then we'll be done with wiring. All right, now, don't go having a heart attack on me. I know this is ugly with wires in front of everywhere. If you've noticed, over there in the area over there, the wiring is butt ugly, this thing. There's one piece of wire loom left in this vehicle. I've ordered that heater connector and some wire loom. So we're gonna take all this and cover it with wire loom. It'll look a whole lot better, so don't worry. I'm gonna go ahead, I gotta plug this into the binary switch, and then I gotta go ahead and crimp on an end on this one to plug in the other side. So let's do that so we can finish this wiring out here, and then we can put the inner fender back in. Let's go to it. All right, like I said, the kit even came with zip ties to hide all this up here. And we're gonna hide all the wiring, all the connectors, and the fender. All right, so now we're gonna go ahead and throw the inner fender back in. Now listen. Inner fenders are a pain in the butt to get in with the fenders on. The kit recommends moving the fender, and I can see why. I'm not gonna do it because I am not a body man, and it took me 4 days to line up these door gaps in the front nose, and it's not even that good. So, you can get the fender in and out. It involves a little bit of bending, but it'll work. So these are supposed to tuck up and away from the inner fender. And yeah. I did disconnect the lower fender bolts down here. Let this pull away a little bit. So we're gonna pop that back in real quick. See? Simple. Just need, hammer, pry bars, screwdrivers, and you beat it in. Now, word of caution, be very careful. The way I have that heater valve up in there, I don't know if you can see, you probably can't see anything in there. There's enough room where it's not pinched, but it's tight in there, so you gotta fine tune that area. I thought I had more room than I did, but it's fine. There's enough room for it to wiggle around without pinching anything. None of the lines are tight or pinched or anything. Everything's got freedom to it. Everything's got some movement in it. So we should be good to go on that end. Like I said, now all I gotta do is run the wire to the binary switch. And I'm done under here, minus the heater hose thing. Which obviously means we can't fill it with coolant. We'll go ahead and put the tire and everything back on, get this thing back on the ground. And then we will jump into the ductwork and then put the dash on. And we're done until that heater connection shows up. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump on that binary switch. I'm not gonna film putting a spade connector on. We'll put that on real quick and then we will throw the tire back on and jump inside. So let's go. All right, next thing we're moving on to is we're back on the inside and we're gonna move on to the ductwork. The first thing they want us to do is hang these. These are for the defrost vents, and they come with a little bracket that holds them in as well. So let's go ahead and stick that in real quick. All right, and just repeat for the other duct. All right, so the kit comes with new ductwork, flexible, bendable. Ductwork, there's two sides. There's 2 inch, 2.5 inch. Now your 2.5 inch is gonna be for pretty much all your vents in the dash. It's gonna be your driver's side, passenger side, middle vents. Your 2 inch is going to the defrost and I believe the 2 floor vents, or the 2, well, not floor vents, they come down, I call them the crotch vents, so lower area vents in front of the seats. The directions tell you how long you got to cut. They come in just 2 long sections. You got to cut them to fit. It gives you direct dimensions on everything you need, so it should be pretty simple to do. Just measure it out and give it the old snip. All right, that's all of them. But they do give you extra. I got a little bit here, extra, and then I believe this was the extra on the other. They give you a little extra, so I cut everything about 1 inch longer than it said to be. But don't go crazy because, you know, that's all they give you. So I'm gonna go stick these in the car. I'm gonna hook them up to the new evaporator box. These are the new vent attachments. These attach to the back of the dash. I'll put these in just a second. I'm gonna go ahead and get these hooked up, get all the hose clamps put on for the new unit. And then we'll put the dash back together and try to throw the dash back in. So let's jump back in the car. All right, so in the car, I know it's kind of a jumble mess in here with the wiring in the way, but go ahead and start rounding the ductwork. So these 2 right here are for our defrost, obviously, passenger driver. Now, these little whatever I'm gonna call them, outlets right here have some kind of hooks on them. So they're not supposed to use any clamps or anything. They just kind of wedge onto it. It's oval shaped, so it's kind of goes on pretty snug. All right, so it's kind of pain to see. It's these 2 ducts right here, on the only 2 that are on the front of the box, go to your vent underneath the steering column, and the vent over here underneath the glove box. So we'll go ahead and attach these. Little mental note for the 2 defrosters: put them on the duct before you screw it into the dashboard because they are tight tolerance, which is good because it holds it on there. But so we're gonna go ahead and stick these on to the evaporator box. There's 2. You see, we'll go here. This one go over there. So, here's on the next step is put the forward dash vent on. Now, the instructions kind of vague on how to attach them. The ductwork attaches to the new. So the ductwork attaches to these new clips. This is one on the driver's side. This is the one on the passenger side, and this is the dual one in the middle. Now, these 2, the driver's side and the middle one, have these little clips that go in here. They just push in onto the back of the dashboard. This one, the passenger one, is screwed in like the original one is. So what I'm gonna do is attach this to the dashboard and attach the hose to this. That way when I install the dashboard, I gotta route it in and just hook it up to there, because it'll be easier to get to there from the floorboard than it will be to get to this corner on the back of the dash and try to put a hose on here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hook the other ones up and hook these back up or hook these to the hose. That way you just pop them all once the dash is in, because there should be room with the gauge cluster out to get to there and the center one right here. So we are going to install these 3. So there's, you can see in here, there's 1, 2, 3. So if you can see over here, there's 1, 2, 3, and then 1 on the side facing directly that way. The top one comes to the center louver right here, and it's going to be what they call the passenger side. Then the one below it goes to the center louver here, and it goes to the one that's on the driver's side. The one below that, the second from the bottom, goes all the way over here to the passenger side duct, and the bottom one goes over to the driver's side duct. So we'll go ahead and hook all, but like I said, the passenger side one up, and hook them to these. So let's do that real quick. Okay, so on the center louver, if you'll notice, there are 2 different sides. There is a difference. The taller one is the passenger side, the wider one is the driver's side. Now, when I stuck these on, I tensioned the driver's side and it popped right off. This seems to be smaller than this, but the smaller hose won't even come anywhere near fitting it. So I went ahead and ran a hose clamp on it just to be safe. I don't want this thing popping off, nor do I want it losing air, not coming out of the vent. So anyway, just keep in mind when you put it on, it's got to face the right way. Passenger, driver. So let's go ahead and snap these on. Alrighty. Certainly challenging, but it's in. Yeah. So, that being said, I'm gonna leave the driver's side off, the lower one that I said I was gonna put on. I'm gonna leave that one off too, just because if I put that one on, I won't be able to get to the one for the passenger side very well once the dash is in. So we'll hook both of those to the dash, install the dash, and then hook them up. So let's move on to the next step then. This is the driver's side one. It's got these little clips in it, so this just pops into the dash. And then the passenger side one, I'm gonna go ahead and screw on. So we'll go ahead and rip the old ones off the dash, get these new ones put in. All right, so if you can see, which you probably can't, I kind of zip tied everything up that's not being used. I'm out of the way, we got our dash, our vents and everything in, so we're gonna go ahead. It's time to put the dash back in. It's the last big step. So I'm gonna grab the dash. All right, so one thing, take your time. Just be patient, take your time. It can be frustrating. It's very frustrating. Take your time. One thing I do think I failed to mention when I was taking the dash out the first time, you have your 3 screws up under here, but you have under here, and of course it's dark and you can't see a darn thing. Up under here, right there. Screw hole that goes into there. There's one more. There's one right there. Can't really see it. One right there. And that one down there. They're just the same, these little tiny little screws that hold everything else together. So throw those in and get the 3 started up here, under here. Get the one down there and the one down here. That'll be enough for me to be satisfied with this thing being held in, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get all the vents connected, make sure everything's done there, and then we just start plugging things back in. Throw everything back together, and we are down the road. So let's get to it, because I'm ready for this thing to be back on the streets. Okay, so we're going trying to get the ducts run. I got the passenger side one running, so that's that little guy. Pretty simple, ran over, plenty of room to hook it on. Now, one thing that I didn't see in the instructions with this kit, and it didn't mention, but I had to do it. If you look down here, oh, the flashlight's ruining it. Look down here, this bracket right here is part of the throttle pedal assembly. And this hose comes right here. You see how that's curved? It's not supposed to be like that. I actually just cut that piece off. I had to cut it off because it was gonna hit directly in the way of that. So I just had to take a grinder snip the tip off of it. No problems, no big deal. But I do know the instructions didn't say that. So there's no way it would have hooked on without either cutting through this pipe or basically crushing it to get it through there. But no big deal, easy fix. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw this one on. And then the only thing left to do are the two little vents here and the one over there underneath the dash or the glove box. And then we're done with the AC kit. I got this clipped in there, just literally snaps onto the back. No big deal, everything's good to go. We're gonna start hooking up wires and putting the cluster and everything back in. We'll be about on the road. Let's get to it. Okay, so the next thing we gotta do is put in the vents here and over there under the glove box. So they come with these little adapters. This is the driver's side one. And what they want you to do is put it up. Oh, look. Put it right here behind this plate. And then there's a lip on the bottom of this plate right here. They want you to drill a 7/64 hole through the lip and then through the adapter. And they come with little screws to hold together. And the other side is pretty much the same thing. They want you to drill a hole all the way through it. There's a lip on the bottom and the top. They want you to go through both sides. Put 2 screws in that one. And then we're just hooking the hose up. And we are officially done running all the venting. So let's drill that out real quick and we'll get it done. Alrighty, and with that, we are officially done with the ductwork. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and bolt the dash down firmly. Just got all the screws kind of loosely in place. Bolt the dash down firmly, start plugging everything back in, throw the gauge cluster and everything back in, and we'll be done. So let's throw that back together. All right, so after spending 30 minutes putting the radio back in, that was a pain in the butt. I went ahead and hooked the power and ground to the back of the cigarette lighter just because it was easy to get to right there. The last AC related thing we got to do is install the new head unit controls. They bolt in to the factory locations with the 3 mounting holes just like that with the factory screws. And all it does is you feed the wire back around the dash and it plugs in. I don't know if you can see it right there next to the main controls that went underneath the hood. Just plug it in and go, and that's all you gotta do. Just hold it in with the 3 screws that came with the old one came out with, and then we'll go ahead and put our volt gauge, shield gauge, rest of the dash cluster back in. Make sure to plug everything up, speedometer cable. These are my little plugs. I gotta plug back into the light. Everything is held in with these little 8mm factory screws. Everything's just simple, easy. Screw back in, and we should be up and running. The kit did come with a new glove box. It's a little shallower to make up for the new ductwork that comes by. I'm going to throw that in. And it came with a cover plate down here to kind of help hide the duct underneath here. So we'll throw that in a second. Let's go ahead and finish putting this dash back together so that we can be done. All right, so I mentioned the kit came with a new glove box insert. This is it. It's a little bit shallower to allow for the ductwork to sneak behind it, and it's curved a little more for the wiring harness behind it. Pretty much the same thing, inside and out, bolts up in the stock locations. So we will throw this in real quick and then we'll go to the driver's side. They gave us this little fella. It clips underneath the driver's side of the dash where the vent comes out down there between your legs, and it helps just to support the ductwork and also hide it. You don't really see it, so we're gonna screw this in real quick and then we will move on to that, and then we'll go from there. All this does is slot into place. That's all it is. Kind of holds the ductwork up, and it also kind of hides it a little bit. And then come back with your lower dash trim. And there you go. There you go. Don't put this on just yet. I got to put the 2 screws in here on the bottom of the bezel. But, little PSA, you taking these dashes apart and putting your gauge cluster back in. There's 2 things you got to remember. 1, there's a little teeny plate right here. It connects here to the back of the gauge cluster. It's a little grounding plate. And then 2 is your little light, whatever you want to call it. It's a little plastic prism looking thing. Helps divert light to the, it diverts light to here, which on the dash bezel is your wiper, not emblem, is your illuminated wiper emblem right here. So make sure to snug those 2 in. Now the kit did say you need to pop this lower knob cover off. It should just slide off, it said. Yeah, see? That way the bezel doesn't get stuck on it. But we were ready. Oh, and don't forget to reuse your original dash vents. They don't come with new ones. You reuse these, fit in the exact same stock location. Good to go. Now, I'm gonna throw the bezel in, put all the screws back in at the 2 down here. We can put the cover on down there. I gotta put all the A-pillar trim back on. I had to take the A-pillar off and the trim piece around here and a little Y connector here so that we could get the dash out because it's kind of covered by the A-pillar trims. So I gotta do that on both sides. And then we are done in here. The only thing left to be do will be, I did get, let me see where the heck I put it. I did get the fitting for the heater valve, for the heater outlet on the block. If I can find where I sat it. Hold on. All right, so this is the heater outlet, whatever you want to call it, attachment. This actually is just like a tight press fit into the back of the head, which is odd to me. Anywho, that's all it is. I gotta pop the old one out because this is all rotted off on the old one. And then just kind of get a socket the size of this, put it over there and just tap it into the head. We should be good to go. And then I can connect the heater valve, or the heater line, fill it with coolant. The only thing left to do is, I came back to wire loom the power wires, is run the power wires to the battery and get a belt. And we will be good to go. So let's finish up the stuff on the inside so we can do that and we can be done. All right, so I don't know if you can see back there, but this is our broken motor outlet. This is the replacement. So what we're gonna do, see if we can't beat this joker out. It's in a terrible place. Now. All right, so we got everything back together except for the dash bezel. The way this is held on, this is the, what do you want to call it? The headlight and wiper switch indicator. It's got these 2 little tabs that bend over, and this one's broken off, so it kept flopping and dangling. So I put some JB welds on that, letting that sit for a minute. We got everything else back together on the inside. That's all been done, minus the gauge bezel and the steering wheel. I spent the last literal hour underneath the hood trying to clean up some wiring. Just kind of looming up some stuff. I gotta get some bigger loom for the battery cables. And I still gotta finish cleaning up this mess. Anyhow, so that's all good. I got the battery hooked up. Nothing's caught on fire yet, so that's good. So I'm going ahead now and I'm gonna fill up the coolant, and then we can fire it up. Let it run, let it get to operating temperature. See how the blower works, and then hopefully it's better than before. I'm gonna fill this up with coolant real quick and then we'll fire this whole girl up. All right, well, we got everything back together. We got coolant in it. We're gonna go ahead and fire it up again. Let it run up, see if we can get it up to temperature. You know, open the heater on full blast. Let that circulate as good as it can be into there, get all the air out of it. Let's see if she'll fire up. Well, she's running. She's very cold natured. I got the original Quadrajet on here. It's got that stupid thermal choke crap, and it doesn't work too good. So kind of had to give her the beans to get her running. Needs more bullets. A little thirsty. Alright, we're gonna open up the heater, turn that on, see what the blower feels like. Oh yeah, she's pushing out some air now. We're going to leave it on high heat, let it run, circulate, cool it through the heater core. Burp all the air out. I will say, next thing on the list is EFI. I was born in 1990. Cars are a little beyond me, and this one's not been very reliable, even though I paid $400 to have it rebuilt. So EFI kit's coming soon. And for anybody wondering, yes, I do have the dual chrome tips to go in there. I gotta cut it and add some bend to it and whatnot to get it to fit right. So that's on the list of things to do as well. I'm gonna pull it outside so I don't die of carbon monoxide. We'll let it run for a little bit. Alrighty, we got everything in. Still gotta pick up a belt. Other than that, the compressor's in, everything's in. Went ahead, got the dashboard back together, new control units in, everything's working good. And this thing puts out some CFM blowers now. That was the one problem with the original AC. It worked great, it cooled great, but the blower put out his heart and it just barely came out the vents. This thing now, it hums out these vents. So this was definitely worth it. That's gonna be a wrap for this video. It's kind of a long one. I looked before I bought this kit for an install video, and I couldn't find it that were very in depth. So I just figured I'd make one that's step by step for you guys. Let me know what you think. If you liked it, leave a comment, give a thumbs up, subscribe if you're not. I appreciate y'all sticking with me, and we will see y'all in the next video. Going on the road. Shoot. I really don't know why I don't. Time out. I'm stupid. And Bob's your uncle. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the steering wheel off. Ooh. Because I'm just gonna probably just time lapse all this. Yeah. I'm trying to get my awkward face.
No, it's a little hard.
Now I gotta go through and trim out all the fat of the wiring and the. What's the word I'm looking for? Pan down.
Oh, sorry. I was yawning.
No, my Alright, and then we're gonna start
We have a lot of outtakes for this bad boy.
We're gonna work on now.
Rubber wrap. I'm out.
Ooh, woosah. Could you not? Yeah, there's so much dog hair for nothing now. Let's jump on in. I'm gonna go ahead. Why can't I talk?
I digress.
Balls, angle.
And then there's one right here.
With these little 8mm factory. Oh, wrong one.